This video is on coordinate geometry of the line worksheet number 3, which is the midpoint of a line. So in coordinate geometry of the worksheet number 1, which was the coordinate plane, we learned about the coordinate plane. So we have our plane here, we have our x and our y axis, and we're able to plot our points. So if we plot the point 1, 1, and we also plot the point -1, -1, what we're able to do is join these 2 points together to give us a line. Now, when we have this line, what we're able to do is we're able to find the midpoint of this line. So in this case, the midpoint of this line would be 0, 0. Now, that's easy to see because we have the point 1, 1 here and -1, -1. So midway between that is just 0, 0. However, it's not always that easy when points are different. So we have another formula which is on page 18 of your formula and tables booklet. And we're able to use that to get the midpoint of any line. Now, the best way to describe how this formula works is just by doing an example. So, question 1 here, or example 1, we have the point P, which is 4, 2, and Q, which is 10, 0, and there are 2 points, and we need to find the midpoint P of the line PQ. So, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to write out the points, exactly like we did in the last worksheet. So, 4, 2, and Q is 10, 0. Again, we label these then, so we have x1, y1, and x2, y2. The next thing we're going to do, exactly like we did in the last worksheet as well, is write down the formula. So that's x1 plus x2 all over 2, and y1 plus y2 all over 2. Now, so the final thing we have to do is just sub in the points. So it becomes easy because we've the points labelled already, we've the formula written down, so we just need to write the points in where they're meant to go. So here we have x1, which is 4, plus x2, which is 10 over 2, and y1, which is 2, plus y2, which is 0 over 2. Now, this is a little dash, by the way, kind of here, here, and here, so we can't type that into the calculator. So what we do is we type this section here into the calculator and this section here into the calculator separately, and then work out our answer. So the first thing I'm going to type in is 4 plus 10 over 2. Now, 4 plus 10 is 14. That divided by 2 is going to give us 7. And then 2 plus 0 is just 2, and 2 over 2 gives us 1. So you might not always need to put it into your calculator. So then the answer for example 1 is 7, 1, and it's the exact same for all the other types of examples, but we're going to go through a few more just so we can get a bit more practice at doing them. So example 2 is we have A, which is 2 minus 1, and B, which is -1, 4, and there are 2 points, and it wants us to find the midpoint of A, B. So again, the first thing we do is write down our point. We do this with most questions in coordinate geometry, and we label those points. So 2 is x1, -1 is y1, and then we have x2, y2. Again, what we do next is we write down the midpoint formula. So we can write the midpoint is equal to x1 plus x2 over 2, y1 plus y2 over 2. Now, so then all we have to do is fill it in. So x1 is 2 plus -1 over 2. And then we have y1, which is -1 plus 4 over 2. Now, so then we just type this part into our calculator. And when we type that into our calculator, we're going to get a half. Always leave it as a fraction. Don't leave it as a decimal point. And then when we type this, the second part into our calculator, we get 3 over 2. And then we found the midpoint of AB. It's 1 over 2, 3 over 2. The only other type of question that can be asked in relation to the midpoint of a line section is when they give you an end segment and the midpoint, and they want you to get the other end point. So if you're given one end point of a line segment and told what the midpoint is, you can find the other end point by using a translation. Now, again, I'm going to go through an example to make this hopefully as easy as possible. So P is -3, 2 is one end of a line segment PQ. The midpoint of PQ is -1, 5. Find Q, the other endpoint of PQ. So the best way to do this is write out P. So P is -3, 2. And that's going to the midpoint, which is -1, 5, and then that's going to our endpoint, which is Q, and we don't know what the endpoint is just yet. Now, if we talk about the x's up here and the y's down here, so the x is up here and the y is down here. So what did we do to minus 3 to make it minus 1? Well, we added 2, so we'll plus 2 to it there. And then what did we do to 2 to make it 5? And you can see here straight away that we just added 3. Now, if we're then talking about the difference between P and Q, well, if this is midway, if the minus 1, 5 is midway between it, the exact same thing would have to happen. So we'd have to plus 2 here, and we'd have to plus 3 here. So then minus 1 plus 2 is going to give us 1, and 5 plus 3 is going to give us 8. So then Q is equal to 1, 8, and that's your answer for this. So I might go through another example of that. And for example, say we had the line segment x, y. Now, we know that x is equal to 3, 4, and we know that z is equal to minus 1, 6. And we're told that z is equal to the midpoint of xy. And we're asked to find y. Well, then what's going to happen here is we know that x is 3, 4. The midpoint is z, which is minus 1, 6. And y is the other end, which we need to find. So very similar to the last one, we asked ourselves, how did we go from 3 to minus 1? Well, to go from 3 to minus 1, you would have to minus 4. And then we ask ourselves, how do we go from 4 to 6? Well, to go from 4 to 6, we just add 2. And then if that's the midpoint, we do the exact same thing when we're going from minus 1 up to this value here. And we do the exact same thing when we're going from 6 up to this value here. So we're going to minus 4 and we're going to plus 2. So then y, the x value of y, would be minus 1 minus 4, which is minus 5. So the endpoint, or y, is going to be minus 5, 8. Now, so the questions that are on this worksheet, so for coordinate geometry of the line worksheet number 3, question 1 and 2 are very, very similar to the two examples I did at the start, so finding the midpoint between 2 points, which is perfectly fine. Question 3 then is looking at again the midpoint. So it says show that the midpoint of the line section A 4 minus 3 and B minus 4, 7 lies on the y-axis. So what that means is we have our x-axis when we draw our coordinate plane and our y-axis when we draw our coordinate plane. And when it lies on the y-axis, the x part is going to equal to 0. So what we have here is this will be somewhere along this line. So the answer we want will be somewhere along here. Question 4 and 5 are very similar to example number 3 that we did as well. So it's just set up a little bit different. So it says if A3 is the midpoint of 13, 6 and 3k, find the value of k. So we can just set it up like this. So if you draw 13, 6, the midpoint is A3, and that will bring you on to 3k. Well, what did we do to 13 to make it 8? What did we do to 6 to make it 3? You're going to do the same to make it 8 to make 3, and then the same 3 to k. So it's very similar. You should be perfectly fine with that. It should cause no issues at all, I would hope. Making sure that obviously the difference between 13 and 8 is 5, but we're taking 5 from 13. So we've got to take 5 from 8 as well to give us 3. From 6 to 3, obviously we're taking 3, so we're going to take 3 from there. So it should be fine. Question 5 is very similar too. This one then is a little bit different because we have here the coordinates of the ends of the diameter of a circle are minus 1, 6 and 7, 2. So here's our circle. I know it doesn't really look like a circle. So it says the diameter now is a point that passes through the center point and has points on either end. So the center point, we're told we don't have it, we're told to get it, but we have that this is minus 1, 6, and this is 7, 2. So to get the midpoint of that, we just use the midpoint formula. So it says 7, part I says find the midpoint of the points A and B and call it C. Second part then says find the midpoint of DE and call it F, and then find the midpoint of CF. So that should be hopefully fine. And then 8 is just asking you to prove that the midpoint is 3, 6. So you just use the midpoint formula with the points D and E, and you should get that the midpoint of the 2 is 3, 6. Question 9 is very similar to question number 6. So find the coordinates of the center O of the given circle. We have 2 points on the diameter. You just find the midpoint. And question 10 should hopefully cause no issues. So it's just finding the midpoints of the coordinates AC and verify that AC is also the midpoint of BD. So again, it's just finding the midpoints and showing them that they're exact same thing. So I'm hoping that the questions on this worksheet should be perfectly fine. And that's brings us to the end of this video, which is the coordinate geometry of a line, worksheet number 3, which is the midpoint of a line.